Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming out today. Good afternoon. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here and for the Explorer.land team for putting this together. There's an incredible number of organizations that have presented over the last 2 days, and I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you so much for the perspectives and approaches that you have in your operating areas. It's really incredible to see. So Eden Reforestation Projects, as it was mentioned, we're a nonprofit organization specializing in large-scale forest restoration. We were founded in 2005 in Ethiopia. We learned to crawl and walk in Madagascar, and now we run operations in 10 countries around the world. Our teams support over 280 restoration sites globally in partnership with governments, communities, and donors. We run all of our own operations from project development to monitoring. These are some pictures of me doing what I do best, which is working with people to bring abstract visions to life. And I hope that that's a little bit of what I get to share with you today is the vision for Mecuburi. So we were asked to explain how it started, so I thought I would talk a little bit about our team in Mozambique. In 2018, Eden opened an office in Mozambique, building on our history and expertise in this field. We set out to scale forest restoration efforts in Mozambique and to change the trajectory of deforestation in collaboration with communities across the country. We began with 3 awesome leaders that you see here, a few planting teams, a GPS, and a drone, and with a lot of grit and resilience and more laughter than I've ever heard in a professional setting, the team in Mozambique has really built their office from the ground up. They started in an area close to home. It's an area outside of Maputo called Katembe. They built trust with communities and local partners and each other over the last few years, and they did this by doing 2 very simple things. 1 is following through on their promises, and 2 is genuinely caring for people. So currently, this is where we're at now. On the left, you'll see photos of some of the first trees that we've planted in Katembe, and then on the right, you'll see our growing team in Mecuburi Forest Reserve. So in 2022, here we are in the middle of our story. Eden Mozambique is one of the most prominent reforestation organizations in Mozambique. We operate and support projects in 6 provinces. This includes 60 and counting restoration sites across 3 forest types, putting thousands of hectares of land on a restoration trajectory since 2018. And like I said, we're still in the middle of this story, and the question on our minds is, what do we do with all of this momentum? And day after day, talking with the team, the answer is really just more good. That's what we got to do. So the Mecuburi Forest Reserve project that I'll share with you today is one of the many sites in our global pipeline of both carbon and landscape scale forest restoration projects. So Eden and our subsidiary Compassionate Carbon, we have over 10 million hectares of land in our project pipeline globally, and we're looking for like-minded funders to support project development and implementation to have real meaningful impacts on the planet and people. So without further ado, I'll jump into Mecuburi Forest Reserve. Mecuburi Forest Reserve is in Nampula province in the north of Mozambique. It's the largest forest reserve in Mozambique, and it was gazetted to protect the upper portion of the Mecuburi River watershed, which you can see right here. So in addition, it's quite a distinct shape. As you can see, that kind of perfect triangle is really distinct on a map of protected areas in the country, and those are formed by local dirt roads in the area. And it's quite interesting because on either sides of the road, you have different communities. So although the reserve was gazetted at about 230,000 hectares, it's estimated that since the Civil War in Mozambique, about 40% of this land has been degraded or settled. Some areas remaining healthy and in need of protection. To me, the need for a collaboratively built landscape vision is clear. Another distinct feature of Mecuburi is the inselberg and gallery forests, which host rare and endemic species. Inselbergs that you can see here in the screenshot from that Explorer.land flyover, thank you guys for making that so clear. They're essentially granite mountains that the entire world has eroded around. And all throughout this area in Mozambique, you find forests on the top and on the sides of these Inselberg mountains. But a quick visit to Mecuburi makes one thing clear. The healthiest forests in the landscape are on and around Inselbergs, but they're rapidly disappearing due to the expansion of agriculture. So Inselberg forests are so special that there's an initiative to create a new biome around this forest type in Mozambique and Malawi. And around Mecuburi Forest Reserve, within a 50-mile radius, there's at least 60 Inselbergs. just to give you an idea of the scale. But most of these inselbergs have shrinking forests due to the expansion of agriculture. In landscape restoration, we talk about this concept of a landscape as a mosaic of competing needs. This screenshot is a perfect example of that. It really captures the idea that the inselberg has healthy forests both around, on top, and on the sides of it, but that expanding agriculture in the region is literally pushing those forests up against the wall. Mecuburi is also home to 20 communities, commercial quantities of naturally occurring edible mushrooms, and over 100 species of trees. The northern portion is a migration corridor for elephants, but like many areas in Mozambique, since the Civil War, there's not a lot of wildlife. Communities in and around Mecuburi survive on charcoal production and shifting slash-and-burn agriculture, which is mostly done along river corridors, so those gallery forests that I mentioned earlier, and then also cleared forest land. These activities are the key drivers of deforestation that need to be addressed collaboratively with the community in order to protect Mecuburi and the services that it provides to the region. I'll also mention that the reserve itself has really important cultural value. As local communities will tell you about, there are sacred places within this forest where people used to hide during the war. And these areas are protected from deforestation because of that history. This is just one example that shows Eden that restoration and protection are possible in this landscape. So our current work in 2021, we began operating a 50,000 hectare restoration project in the Tonyan Mikaleen communities. After these communities, the site is named after the communities that are involved in the work. So the area that was selected was in collaboration with the government because it's a very high priority for restoration and also for fire awareness campaigns to really, to essentially explain the fact that there's a huge threat to this landscape from uncontrolled fires due to agriculture. So to date, we've received funding and commitments to plant and monitor 10 million trees in this landscape, and our team also conducts those awareness campaigns that you talked about. In 2023, we'll expand our work into this landscape to address some key challenges at scale and to develop new sustainability initiatives that are co-created with the community. In terms of challenges, there are two main challenges in the reserve. The first is that the government zoning plan for the reserve is outdated. And that means that communities that farm and inhabit this land don't have firm leases. And also that the healthy forest in the area is not actively protected. The government is seeking partners like Eden to facilitate those conversations about updating a zoning plan collaboratively in order to create a new common vision for this region. The second challenge is that fire from slash-and-burn agriculture is rapidly reducing remnant forests, as you can see in this picture. So this is an inselberg, and you can see the fire in the top corner that is essentially pushing these forests to the wall. So protection of inselberg and also gallery forests along the Mecuburi River is an urgent priority. As you all probably recognize, in order to plant trees, you need seeds. And of course, the connectivity of the landscape is important as well. And so if we don't urgently protect areas like this, then we're not going to be setting up ourselves well for future restoration. And these are areas that we can't easily get back once they're lost. In terms of what our expansion looks like, the work Eden plans to do is comprehensive collaborative planning with the community and the government to really determine the future of Mecuburi in a collaborative way to make sure that it can provide all of the things that it needs to provide, everything from land tenure, working on land tenure issues, developing agroforestry programs that work to improve soil health and add new income streams, and then also developing regenerative supply chains around non-timber forest projects or products such as chanterelle mushrooms, which I shared with you earlier. There's a lot of other things we're planning to do, and I know this slideshow should be available, so this is a rough idea of our theory of change to help you understand how we plan to move from certain activities into a very specific impact. But the summary is essentially that we're looking to build a resilient landscape, not by ourselves and not just with the government, but collaboratively with everyone who inhabits this area. The financial input for this is about $26.5 million. More will be needed, and that's obviously for the comprehensive planning process, but also for the early stages of implementation of restoration, including the addition of 100,000 hectares into our current operations. which essentially represents the majority of the restoration potential in the reserve. And this project will last at least 15 years. In terms of monitoring, Eden has kind of a fourfold approach to monitoring. First is that we take a standards-based approach to restoration, which essentially means that we're continuously aligning our approach in project development with the industry and also setting goals in the first place. I'm not sure if you've ever seen studies that show that monitoring goals are, a lot of projects don't have them, so you can't really monitor towards them. My time is running out, but essentially we have monitoring protocols where we landscape-specific metrics and then also third-party verification. So I'd just like to thank you again for taking the time to listen to this story and hear more about Eden. If you're interested in learning more about this project or others, I'll be outside after the panel. Thank you.